So Laura, one of the things that we really bonded over through the your coaching of me is the fact that we're both actors,
Yes.
New York City actors, and
Yes.
with lots of New York City acting stories to share with one another. Some great, some pretty challenging and hilarious and painfully so.
That's so
But
true.
you had a really great career and still are working as a soap opera actress, correct? You did.
Yeah, I worked in daytime for I say 15 years. So it was non-contract, contract, recurring. So it was a lot. And opened two off-Broadway shows, new plays, and that was
Mm.
exciting and quite a treat. And I've done lots and
Theater.
lots of commercial work and
Uh-huh.
print work.
Great. And you also studied with a lot of the same people that I studied with. So, people have this idea sometimes that people who work on soaps don't have the chops, but your chops are really excellent and allowed you a ton of versatility.
Yeah, it was great.
As we've dialogued about acting, I feel like we have the same language, and that's really helped me even as your divorce coach person, just that you understand the sensibility of how an actor is kind of built and get me.
I think that, yes, temperamentally, I was a really good coach for you because I not only studied in the acting world, so emotionality and feelings and the agility of shifting roles, shifting characters, shifting circumstances. Um, I also study with master teachers who talked a lot about self-regulation and the discipline of the mind.
Yeah.
So as an actor, we were taught a lot of the discipline of our bodies,
Hmm.
right? For movement and for voice. And
How to
um,
access our emotional life for
that
authenticity.
that's right. But also how to um, play a character or a time period, the discipline around that, right? The fourth wall is a discipline, right? Like,
Mhm.
right? We don't interact with the audience on stage, typically. So, but what I have found, and one of the reasons why I started, you and I met through my divorce coaching, but I became a life coach for actors as well.
Oh, that's so great. I'm loving that you've put that hat on because I think it's something that a lot of actors really need. I could have so used that as a young actor. I had no idea how to regulate myself, and the rejection and the rockiness and the ups and downs of that life, are very hard to navigate without allowing it to affect one's self-esteem or to also just kind of like not have a life
Oh,
except for the life of this pursuit. And I
right.
think it sounds like that's maybe one of the things that you address. Is that true?
It is. And it's I think what it is also I think it's really important what you just said, the pursuit, the life of the pursuit. You get totally focused in an industry that really doesn't want you to have any other life, that
Right.
demands everything from you. Your auditions come, 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, and you have to be ready, you have to be on, and you have to look a certain way, which is it sort of has broadened more recently, right? There's a great deal more of look, versatility, and variety. But when I was a young actor, I had to look a certain way and be prepared to always look that way. Like hair,
No
makeup,
pressure or anything.
no pressure. No, I have so many stories about that. But today, what I've noticed is everyone thinks that they can become a famous actor because of social media. And there is truth to that, right? Our influencers are celebrities. There's no question about it.
People who are good at managing that. Yeah.
Right. But the problem is what we also see, which we've seen historically, and you and I have experienced this, is the actors whose lives completely and utterly fall apart.
Hmm.
And there's no there's no sense of self, and there's no they're constantly needing the assurance, and they are surrounded by people who they pay, and those people buttress their personality, their self-esteem, their confidence. And to
Everything's transactional.
everything. When I was young and I was working on the soaps, first of all, the soap's schedule, depending on story,
Hmm.
can be very demanding, and that becomes your world. And so if I wasn't working, I had no world. And I used to make a joke, and it was painful, but I used to, and we've talked about this, I
Hmm.
would pay people to be my friend.
Yes, we have discussed this.
And
A
it,
painful reality. A
and
painful reality.
And when you're a celebrity or when you're getting a little bit of traction, what also happens is there are a lot of people that want to hang on to you and come with you.
Hmm.
And I see this also in my divorce coaching clients too, who are successful business people. I'm kind
Hmm.
of like, how many people are you paying to support you? Like, what are you doing? This person's taking money, and 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 they're all telling you who you are and what you do. So I
Yeah.
see that a lot in the acting world. And to me, it's so, what is it? I think there's a part of me that just worries about them, worries about those kids, those actors, those professionals, because I'm afraid of what happens when this all falls apart.
What's the price?
What's the price?
Hmm.
And, and who are you during the experience of being successful? And who are you during the quiet moments? And that's the other part is who are you when you get rejected? It's very painful. That corresponds with any sort of breakup and heartbreak, right? Because, you know,
Mm.
it's very
So if I'm
similar.
a young actor and I come to you, and your work with me is then about like kind of helping me find calm through all the storms and sort of the
Sure,
up and down of the business, and also
sure.
to examine like who is around you, or you know.
I think it's a number of things, Anne. I think it depends on the individual. I've coached actors trying to audition to get into colleges or to audition for um, casting calls, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, about who are they when they're not in rehearsal mode or performance mode, right? Because again, that's that tunnel vision.
Hmm.
And also, um, what happens when it starts to work, right? You're getting successful and your agent starts calling you all the time, or your manager starts calling you, or I've had agents and managers tell me who I could date.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yep.
The
And
control,
mhm,
I get more successful than people wanting to exert control over your choices. How,
absolutely, because
how
they
do you
don't.
approach that?
Sorry,
Mhm.
I cut you off. I didn't mean to.
And how do you manage that? Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I understand from an agent or a manager's point of view, they earn money off of the product, right? I was a product that was being sold.
Hmm.
But and how do you hold that how do you hold that within yourself? Do what is your guiding light? Where are you? I keep doing this. I don't know if you're seeing me, but I keep doing this like
I
where are
do.
you in integrity? Where are you right? In it, all of it. And I think the concept of the idea of the sitting still in the storm, um, what is your practice? Who are you without somebody telling you who you are? And if you're young, if you're, let's say you're a teenager or somebody in their 20s who's getting success, who are you? Are you your character? Are you your image? Are you your what your agent tells you or your producer? Or just the opposite. What if you're somebody who's been auditioning for 10 years and you haven't gotten that and you're still waiting tables or working as a nanny, which I did. I worked as a nanny. You know, who are you when it's not working? And Then, just like with divorce or heartbreak, how do you transition into a different life?
Right. If you're hitting your head against the wall and you're done,
Right.
how to make a graceful exit without feeling ashamed of failure.
That's right. The same kind of heartbreak. Like I often
And-
when I had to leave New York City to be with family, I felt like I was breaking up with the city. I was breaking up not necessarily with the men who had broken my heart in New York City, but I was breaking up with the city. If you are an actor in New York City or LA and you can't make it, and you have to move because it's so expensive to live there and you're in love with this city, how do you heal that heartbreak, right? And transitioned into a different life. And that is, oh, sometimes that takes some support, right? It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Also coming to that decision, like,
Oof, painful,
right.
very painful.
Or deciding to do something that you've always wanted to do artistically and figure out a way to do it without
That's
going
right.
through the traditional channels
That's
of
right. And
auditions
that's
and cattle calls and all that. What
mhm,
is there another way that I can go about this where I will be satisfied as an artist? Maybe also have a livelihood that's different, but what do
mhm.
I have to do to make art? How do I go
I think
about that?
one of the questions I ask is, do you want to be an artist or do you want to be an actor?
Yeah.
There is a tremendous difference between wanting to be an artist and wanting to be an actor. You are an artist. You create everywhere. I have had clients who say, "No, I want to be an actor." And I'm like, "That's harder. That's harder." There, you know, the hard
Yeah.
part that people don't understand is I remember when I was auditioning for One Life to Live, and I was pretty cheeky and cocky. No question. I had to be cheeky and I had to be cocky. I was competing at a pretty high level, and I didn't walk. We went upstairs to the casting agents at the time, and there was a long hallway, and there were about 12, maybe 20 chairs.
I know this room.
I know,
What you're
right?
talking about.
And
Yes.
I looked down the line, and we all had brown hair, all about 5'5", 5'6", all about medium height. Every one of us, we were all attractive. And I looked down, and I went, wow, we could be a cheering squad. It's you are all the best in these cities. You are the best in schools. You are best in your high school, your college, your community. You,
And you sit in that chair, and here's a quote from Performance Hell, which is a play that I've been working on about this subject.
yeah.
Why am I doing this? Why
Why
don't I
am
paint pictures? Why don't I paint houses? He's about to quit when they call his number. You
That's
know,
right. Such
and
a great line. Oh my gosh, that's
sitting
such a
there. And every single actor that I know has sat there and asked that question. What am I doing in this room?
what am I doing? I remember a casting agent whom I met very like within months of being in New York City. And she said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, um, you the most important people in your life are the people that will be next to you at the end of your life.
Hmm.
And so I always kept that in mind and put family, I come from a really big family. So my family, my children now, my husbands at the time, when I had them, my relationships were always primary to me, to the business, even though I cared deeply about the business and still do. Um, but my heart really does go out to young actors, and I really do want to help them find that inner compass so that whether success comes or not, they know who they are and they get that support for their lives, not just their livelihood, but for their lives. So that's super important to me.
Have you experienced a process with a young actor like that? Anything specific you can share with us about someone's journey?
Well, there was a young actor I was working with who, um, the one that wanted to be an actor,
Right.
and I encouraged them not to go to school, to take a year break between high school and college, because I felt that the look of this individual was such that they were always going to cast older.
Hmm.
And I encouraged them to go to New York and encourage the parents to go to New York, go to New
Hmm.
York, and make sure that this person pays their way,
Hmm.
because the look was not unusual. The talent, I'm not good. I can't judge talent because I'm not the casting agent, right? The casting agent is going to judge talent and look. They're the
So the
ones.
talent was in question. Who
That's
knows?
right. Talent's in question, but confidence was low.
Hmm.
And I was afraid the industry was going to chew them up.
Yeah.
So um, that is in process. That's in process right now. And I think that my concern was that they were going for the career and they weren't sure why. It was for the wrong reasons.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's the kind of person that um, needs a lot of support because the industry will will break a heart.
I had a speech teacher say that to me once in acting school, Lydia Parker, and she
Yes.
was at the end of her career,
Yes.
and she was wise. And one day she took me aside, and it was hard to hear this. I didn't really want to hear it, but
Sure.
it still resonates to this day. She said, I had had some emotional breakdown, which was common then at art school.
Sure.
And she said, Anne, you're really too sensitive to be an actor.
That's right. That's right. I
She really
had a
was.
I had an acting coach when I first got the soaps who gave me this, and I carried it ever since. Um, this is called she gave, I don't know if you can see it, trust thyself, to thyself be true. And Barbara gave that to me. She and I worked on Another World together. And you can see it's front and center in my life. And
Yeah.
it's really important for me, um, that you have to know thyself. You have to know, that
First.
goes back to that, who am I, in the midst of all of this, who am I? Anyway, Anne, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me. Let's do this again soon, okay?
I would
And
love that.
talk
It's
more
so,
about my acting coaching and our acting careers. All right,
I
I'll
know
see you
it's very
soon.
exciting. Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
Bye.